It's now my great pleasure to invite Harry Jonas of Natural Justice to address us for a few minutes. Thank you, Harry.
Good evening, everyone. Well done for being here, especially whilst we're being freeze-dried. I'm going to be brief, but I have great passion for what I'm about to speak about. So the brevity of it, is inversely proportional with how much I would like to speak about it more with a drink and some food in our hands. By the way, the bar is already open, so those of you who would like to grab something whilst we continue talking for the second two, please do. Great, so my name is Harry Jonas. I'm an international environmental human rights lawyer with Natural Justice. And I worked with others to produce a scoping paper on Aichi Target 11. And there have been some very, very interesting findings and outputs from this work that I'm about to speak about now. Here is Aichi Target. I'm sure many of you know it off by heart. And I thought I knew it off by heart, actually. And when I got into this work, this, what is in orange, stuck out. So I did a literature review of this, which is a fancy way of saying I Googled other effective area-based conservation measures. And to my absolute amazement, there was very, very little that had been written about this. Amazingly small amount of thinking has been done on this. The Canadians have done something, few others have. So I was astonished. More astonished when I found this is the most recent request from the CBD. There are earlier ones, but I thought I'd put the most recent ones up, requesting IUCN. These are all directed to IUCN. It doesn't say it in the statements, but it is. And I rather like the last one, which is a sort of articulating the greatest understatement ever, would be useful. This is the World Conservation Monitoring Center saying we're being sent by countries data on other effective area-based conservation measures. When we ask them how they define them, they say, well, they're not PAs, and we think they're quite effective at conserving biodiversity, so we're sending them to you. And WCMC doesn't have a working definition either because IUCN hasn't yet developed one. So what could be OECMs is the acronym we're using. There may be others. This is a landscape from where I live at the moment. This is in Sabah. Crocker Range National Park runs along the dark hill at the back. Over the hill is a national park. And this is a community area. You can see the Swidden agriculture. And I've been there. There is good high levels of biodiversity. But it is not a protected area. The governance system does support biodiversity. So is this or is this not an OECM? How do we decide? So in the research, once we finished this, I decided to delve a little bit deeper into this and started writing to all sorts of people in IUCN and beyond, saying, why do you think we yet don't have a definition? And why is it that despite the CBD's repeated calls for information, this hasn't yet been developed? And it boils down to a whole range of different things, but at some level, quite visceral emotions about protected areas and what lies beyond protected areas. I'm not going to go through each one of these specifically. You can see these now, but there is a deep concern. Sorry, I'll begin with the pros. The pros are that there is an enormous amount of biodiversity in this world outside protected areas. Inside protected areas, there is a governmental, and as Charles showed, or private or indigenous peoples and local communities, a focus by these groups on protecting those. But outside, particularly when it comes to legislation, these areas often are unprotected in law. They're unrecognized in law. And so by defining intelligently, cleverly, sensitively other effective area-based conservation measures, we may be able to give greater protection to much, much larger areas of Earth. The flip side, of course, is that a lot of areas that we may not want to give bona fide legal recognition to may want to qualify as other effective area-based conservation measures. And this really is where the emotions get stirred up. Mining concessions, which has some endangered species on it, drilling rigs, especially around extractives, talking about industrial agriculture, these kinds of things. Thank you. There's a real concern about this. Some of them are specified, and some of them are just a concern that this is going to lead to unintended consequences, and that sort of the cat will be out of the bag. Again, I'm not going to run through all of these, but even if you just break down the wording of OE's other effective area-based conservation measures, each one of these issues raises a whole litany of questions, and I've just picked one for each one of those, but I promise you, there've been a few meetings here already about this, and every time you open one of those questions up, a few more questions arise. And very interestingly, not just about OECMs, because once you delve into what is an OECM, which is an other from a PA, a lot of questions are re-raised about what is a protected area, and have we defined it correctly, etc. So I just want to conclude by saying, one of the decisions which has been taken here at, I suppose, a de facto level, it hasn't been stamped by the IUCN hierarchy yet, but there will be an IUCN task force, time-bound, that will be looking at this issue. Will likely report back interim findings for the World Conservation Congress in Hawaii. And if you're interested in this issue, from whatever background, please be in touch, and let's take this forward together. In the meantime, if you want more information, there is a snippet of this information in the IDLO scoping paper we produced, and much more in a Parks article that we subsequently wrote to back this up. Thanks very much.